Hi there, and thank you for joining us for another session in the Global Partnerships Day. My name is David McCarthy. I'm a Senior Director of Partnerships in EMEA for PartnerEyes, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Steve Gardner, Global Director of Retail Partnerships for a very interesting company called Reward. Reward are the leading provider of personalised card-linked offers, working alongside the likes of Amex, MasterCard and Visa, to deliver CLO campaigns across 40 different countries to over 200 million engaged cardholders worldwide. So I'm hoping Steve knows a thing or two about card linking. Thanks for joining us today, Steve.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, let's hope I can do card linking some.
It's quite the intro. Thanks very much. And, I'm really glad we got the opportunity to discuss card linking today, because it's something that I've been following for the last couple of years, and it really feels like it's gathering pace at the moment. And although the technology's been around for some time, in some regards, it's still very much a new marketing channel for a lot of brands. And it'll be interesting to kind of discuss that shift and that momentum in the moment. But for the audience that are tuning in right now, who may or may not be aware of card linking or CLO, I was hoping you could give us a quick summary on, what the hell is card linking technology and how does it work?
Sure. I'll do my best. So really what it boils down to, so Reward work with banks and banking partners around the globe. Now that's from Visa, MasterCard, Amex, as well as local sort of in-country banks. And for example, here in the UK, we work with RBS, NatWest, and a few others. And what it comes down to is there are two main aspects to our business, and the card linking aspect really there is about using transactional data within these bank programs, right, for a closed user group, right, opted-in consumers who've selected those accounts, they've registered their card details. We then have access to their transactional history, right, their banking transactional history, and it enables us to then target these consumers with offers for brands we work with. So that might be about driving new acquisition. It could be about re-engaging with lapse, looking at retention strategies to coexist with their CRM programs for existing shoppers to drive changes in that sense. But what it boils down to is we have this depth of data on the consumer's spending behaviors, and we can then segment that audience to drive results for them.
Right. And in terms of like the user journey, it's like the customer logs in. So in this scenario, the publisher is actually the bank, and they're kind of marketing these offers to the consumers, and they link the offer to the card so that the offer is loaded on the card.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So that user journey is very much that. There is no comms, so it all sits in with the bank communication channels, right? So it's through the bank sending out emails every couple of weeks with targeted offers to consumers. It's in their banking apps, it's on the banking websites, it's all done in their marcoms. It's not done by the brand, it's not done by Reward or PartnerEyes, it's entirely done in the banking channel. Now, from a consumer's perspective, I elected my bank account, I choose my bank account, and I'm giving them those permissions to target me with offers, right? So I then have a seamless scenario where I go in and I see my offers, and it allows me to then go and say, right, okay, I'm going to go and visit X retailer on the high street, or I'm going to book X holiday because I've seen an offer in here which has been targeted to me and I know why, blah, blah, blah. And then the consumer can then go make their spend with that card. Now, should they use PayPal or Klarna or any other sort of payment system, we're not then going to be rewarding them anything. It is purely when they use those registered bank cards. And that's where that card linking, literally card linked offers, comes into it. It's very much that piece of merging of informations.
Yeah. And from a brand perspective, if they wanted to run with these kind of offers, they could come to a company like yours because you can provide the setup essentially. So you're very much, yeah.
Sorry, absolutely, yeah. So we sit in this beautiful place. So as a business, there are sort of 2-3 main aspects of what we do. Now, obviously, I've just mentioned the merchant-funded card-linked offers section, so broadly. The other part is obviously we have a full sort of technology suite sort of that the banks and the credit card companies that we work with can choose from, right? And that will allow them to build these programs out. So when a brand comes to us, say, right, okay, what is it you want to achieve, right? What are your goals, Mr. Customer? Like I said, it could be new acquisition, it could be retention. we've seen quite a bit of stuff to do with COVID and pandemics and trying to realign ourselves with the world, right? Which is now. So they come to us, we work with them, best campaign structure, offer rates, KPIs, ROI that they want to obtain from a campaign. We put it into practice. So then they provide us, through you guys, right, with logos and images and their merchant IDs, right? Their transaction IDs. That's it. We then take that heavy lifting onto our shoulders, so to speak. Our account management team will then talk with the banks, the publisher teams, on board with these retailers, go through the compliance elements with the banks, and then feedback. Here's your launch date, Mr. Brand. Happy to go. Then we start seeing the transactions. We start reporting going through. There is no need for a brand to have any development on their side, right? There's no development windows needed to re-tag a website or to, change their till system with an extra button or to train staff. Is done in the banking environment on those bank rails when the transaction takes place. So very fortunate in that sense.
Yeah, and it's a very simplified kind of process. And I just wanted to come back to that kind of momentum that I mentioned. And from our perspective as a platform, we tend to kind of have eyes on new emerging partner types and what's trending, if you like. And, it really feels like card linking is very much kind of front of mind for a lot of brands at the moment, and publishers as well, who are looking for new ways to monetize.
Yeah.
And when I think about card linking technology, historically, it's very much been viewed as an in-store marketing channel. And I think early adopters in the channel very much come from the hospitality industry, and there was a lot of bars and restaurants and hotels that were trying to drive footfall in store. But something that we've noticed is that there seems to be this huge appetite coming from the e-commerce sector at the moment. I was just curious, is that something that you guys can identify with as well? And if so, what do you think is driving that shift at the moment?
It's such a tricky question, right? Because I think, a tricky question. There are a number of factors, right? Yes, historically, I think the in-store piece was a massive element, because how else would you drive in to be able to track and report it, right? It's in that sense. So we're very fortunate. That still seems to be a very large part of what we do, right? It is massively that omni-channel piece when it's eligible, when it's relevant to brands, is huge. Being able to link those things together and drive in-store shoppers online or online shoppers in store, or working around refurb, store openings, store closures, all those things that we can do in that offline world, right? Now, the e-com world, that sort of mobile commerce world, everything, how I suppose we've evolved as consumers, if I'm honest. Pandemic is possibly, if I'm allowed to say this out loud and call it a positive out the back of a pandemic, but I think it's accelerated where we were going as consumers. Right? It's accelerated our reliance through the ages, right, of trust and understanding of the e-commerce or mobile commerce world. That ability to be able to get what you need off the back of a keyboard or a quick click and a tap. So yeah, we have seen an increase in the number of pure play e-commerce retailers working with us and approaching us and working with us more than potentially in the past. And there are a number of factors. It could be just the growth of e-commerce generally speaking, because we had no options. But in other cases, you could argue, is this to do with any kind of sort of tracking changes and the nature of evolutions in these different sort of walled garden scenarios where you've got paywalls in one place, you've got the changing in the tracking histories and legislations on different. There are so many contributing factors.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of them is that just as a consumers, we've kind of, like you said, we've kind of got used to that simplified payment as well, like the rise of wallets, people like Deliveroo and Uber, where we register our cards now, where, probably as little as 5 or 6 years ago, we might have been a little bit more dubious to do that. But, we're very much kind of accustomed to that payment flow now, and we enjoy the simplicity of it.
Hugely. And I find the same, my dad probably won't ever see this, even my old man, he's in his 70s now, and up until recently, he was like, e-commerce, shopping online, no. Even he now sees the value of it. He knows what he likes, and he registered, and he goes, yeah, I'll just get it sent to you. My son's birthday's coming up, and he goes, oh, just send me a link to your wish list on X retailer's website and we'll get us some stuff delivered. And it's like, even that end of the world has come through. So that is, you know, from the disposable income side, I think everyone's getting more comfortable with it. Like you said, I mean, I think I've got my cards registered with most people. I don't think twice about keep my card details, because I also know that my bank's protecting me, right? I know, I mean, I've been with the same bank for years and years now. And at one point I had my card stolen. Oh, I didn't even notice, I'm honest, but it went missing. And then I saw payments and they didn't even question it. They went, yeah, but you live over there in that corner of London and it happened on that corner. Yeah, fine. No, absolutely. Here's credited back to your account. So there's security there in a number of ways, but e-commerce sites have done a lot more.
Yeah, definitely. Also, you know, when we've spoken about card linking in the past, you've mentioned how it's become a lot smarter in recent years. I was just curious, like what kind of enhancements have you seen that have led to that smartness, and you know, what are the benefits to brands and consumers of those developments?
Sure. I think really, I suppose it's the evolution of, card linking is a broad term. I think us at Reward, or what we focus at Reward, really is that accuracy and that sort of data usage, the right usage of data. You know, being able to segment an audience pool, right, in the most effective way for their needs. You know, and what I mean by that is, because we have this unique position to have this historical data, right, in being able to know whether or not somebody visited, I don't know, a McDonald's on a Friday on High Street X, but happened to have bought a train ticket at train station Y, for example, be able to correlate those sort of, and that's very granular, right? But correlate those sort of things into building out a picture of a consumer. You know, knowing how people really engage with brands over time. You know, how frequently does somebody, I don't know, you know, have their delivery or their payment going out to the craft gin clubs or to, you know, another brand. What they do has been interesting. I think one of the biggest things we've seen recently, and actually we kind of found quite a few brands we work with did a similar sort of thing. Going back to the pandemic, is being able to look at their consumers' life cycle and what we call the share of wallet, right, pre-pandemic, right, and how they were shopping both online and in store with a particular brand, and then seeing what happened when the pandemic started, when all of a sudden your in-store world wasn't there for you. So although you might have been a pure play e-commerce, let's go with fashion player, right, and you had your market share and everything was fine, but then seeing, did you lose that during the pandemic because everybody was going online? It wasn't like you would just have online portal, but everybody was pushing you to their online. Or see, I mean, I can't remember the number of emails I received from brands I'd registered for, right, to get emails saying, oh, don't forget we're online too, come and buy from us. And that intelligence of using the data to understand a consumer, but also an audience pool, a nation's spending behavior, has really helped us advance the results we're getting and being able to tie that into a brand's major KPIs. Now, that could be revenue perspective, right? Literally driving top line revenue. I mean, some organizations don't care whether you're an existing shopper or a new shopper. They just want you to buy more goods. It's literally buy more products. You know, furniture companies, you've got multiple rooms. Why ignore you because you've already bought a bed when you've got another room, you need a dining room table? But knowing how people sit in these life cycles. Did you move house recently? In which case, we all know there are things you do when you move house, irrespective of whether it's new or old build, whatever. You go to the garden centre if you've got a garden, right? If you're in certain areas, you know you will because you want new plants in your garden, or you're going to buy new cushions, or, you know, if you're lucky, I didn't get away with it when we moved house, a massive brand new TV because, well, of course you do. I wasn't allowed, but still, you know, so engaging with people based on life cycles of themselves as well as seasonality was also a big gain, I think, in the advancements of card linking, but definitely with Reward, how we focus there. And then it's really that customer service, right? Being there to listen to the brand and feedback as well sometimes. Again, do you know what? We've seen a certain behavior in a sector, and it doesn't have to be relevant. It could be an ancillary sector to an industry, and say, but there's been an increase over here that I think you should look into, right? And be able to feed that loop back and really collaborate and evolve.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the power is in the data, you know, combined with that user journey. It makes it very, very simplistic. One point I wanted to raise is, you know, I really love the simplicity of the user journey from the online perspective. But, you know, for the in-store journey as well, I think that's really quite interesting because I think kind of omni-channel brands who have looked to try and leverage their platform to drive online to in-store, that's always been quite challenging. And I think you touched on it. I touched on it earlier, but to have the kind of level of impact that they require for like a successful always-on marketing campaign to drive in-store, that often requires a scale and a level of automation, whereby the advertiser would often have to look at the POS system to try and integrate into the POS system software itself to be able to capture those redemptions and somehow get that information back into the platform. And that becomes a huge challenge for a brand. If you're a performance marketing manager and affiliate marketing manager, brand side for a multinational company, how do you even navigate through that conversation? Whereas this solution seems to kind of almost bypass those issues. And is that right? And how is that so?
Yeah. Do you know what? You're right. I mean, I'll be honest, and for anybody who has that challenge, some prayers with you, because it can't be easy, right? Aligning two different systems and everything else, right? It's not, but we are very fortunate because at the end of the day, we have this kind of unifying point of any transaction is the payment, right? Irrespective of whether you're doing it on a mobile or an online on a laptop or a tablet or a desktop or whatever it is, even your smart TVs, right? That doesn't matter. It's the same as when you walk into a shop, you have your card, right? You pay with that, you pay with cash, but we're doing that less and less. And even again, through the pandemic, even less now is card payments, right? You act as a payment system, right? So that payment section there is that most important sort of linking piece. And we're very lucky the space we live in. That is what we do, So what that's enabled us is to really sort of help brands understand even the correlation between their own omni-channel shopper. We're so lucky. I mean, the data is fascinating to look into, and that omni-channel piece is extraordinary when you look at, especially post-pandemic again, right? Visited an online store, okay, which they never did before. And have they now gone back to shopping in store again? Or what have we done? We have seen quite a growth of companies saying, yeah, we've closed 6, 7, 12 stores, whatever it is. Can you help us keep those sort of customers coming to us online? But in the same sense, we've got these stores open. Can we get people coming back in store? Because we then, the value there, that customer experience, we've gone through a lot of effort as a business to make ourselves, I don't want to say COVID ready, because let's try and pretend we're past that stage, right? It's still around us, but whatever. Can we help? And again, we can, because we have that information, of that payment process, which allows us to know was it in store, online, and how they do that for everything they do, not just a one view of how they spend with me as a retailer.
Yeah, and again, the key thing there is the way in which you are obtaining that data. It's quite unique in terms of it's the integrations with the Amex, the Visa card, and Mastercard that allowing you to kind of get around that POS system. Essentially,
we don't. I know it sounds silly. We don't care what POS system people use. We don't care whether how they do it. Is it a mobile terminal they've walked around the department store with, or a fixed till, or anything like that? Because the payment takes place, and in that second, we've all stood there, right? And you're waiting for you to tap your card or you type in numbers. There's a couple of seconds, right, where you wait for your authorization to take place, and bank A to tell your other bank, and yes, they've got the money, they can have the product, or they've got arrangement, and you can have it, and we'll deal with that later. That's where we sit in the same way like a DMP sits in that sort of programmatic display world. Okay, is it the right consumer for the? It's that same sort of scenario, and that's where we sit.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly removes a lot of friction for the offline journey, and so given its ability to kind of seamlessly drive online and offline for omni-channel brands, what kind of like tangible benefit and impact have brands had? Any sort of examples you could share?
Lots, but again, I can't give you the details, right? I'd love to sit and with brand A, we did this, and this, and X, we did that, and that, because we work with a lot of organizations from A to Z in the alphabet, literally, of who we work with around the globe, right, of organizations. And it's all sectors, right? It's travel, it's restaurants, it's bars, it's looking into subscription services, high-end fashion, everyday fashion, sort of grocery, coffee, all of it. We've got retailers and brands who work within all spaces. The uniform thing is we will drive campaigns that meet their KPIs. Now, I know a lot of what we do is focusing on getting that ROAS, making sure that they're getting the returns they want. Because at the end of the day, I believe we're a performance, we sit in the performance space, right? And we drive results. We want to make sure that everything fits that kind of model for them. You know, is it new customers? And, you know, does a new customer who's, I don't know, never shopped at competitor list A, B, C, D, and F, right? Are they as valuable to somebody who's shopping with a direct competitor? So we do have scenarios where, you know, we work at different ROI levels for different segments, okay? You know, we've driven some great increase in revenue and new customer numbers and repeat customers for brands across the board. I'd love to talk more about it. Obviously, you know, any of your brands, you know, anybody who works for PartnerRise, right? We want to work with you guys, and we could probably share a bit more about your sector to you.
Yeah. I mean, something we've noticed is, you know, obviously you guys, you have access to some of the largest loyalty schemes in the UK and globally, and I think just with the level of targeting that you can provide, you know, the scale that some of our brands has been significant. You know, some of the brands are very mature programs that have been running for a number of years, and you know, we've seen increases of almost up to 25%. And you know, the reports are that they've seen a huge number in new customer acquisition. So yeah, there's very much some great results there. Yeah, something I wanted to kind of touch on, I guess, is the future of CLO. I think, you know, kind of early iterations of card linking, I could almost visualize the marketing from sort of the card issuers, where it's very much pick up rewards for your everyday spending, and it was very much like a card benefit as opposed to like a brand loyalty exercise. And it was a little bit kind of unsolicited in a way, in terms of the offers. But, you know, it feels like that's completely, those times have gone, right? These publishers and banks are, you know, true like marketing machines themselves. And I wonder if you could maybe just tell us a little bit about that evolution and how, you know, banks today are actually becoming, you know, true publishers to effect.
It's funny. There are lots of change around us, right? And if we look at, I mean, even if it's not just the bank side of things, just how we consume media, right? How much that's changed over time. And I think it's just I won't say natural evolution, because in some cases you have to pull a bank kicking and screaming into, you know, changing subject lines or evolving their sort of comms, because again, they have very strict regulations. Their world is, well, I'm not going to say it's like a balance sheet, but yeah, let's be honest, it's fact figures, it's number crunching at its best, right? That's the foundation of banking, you know, back in the day, whenever it was, it all started. It's evolved from there to the point now where I'm still fascinated that we have things like open banking, right? At one point, you know, and what was that, last 3 years, possibly even less, that open banking has become a thing where, you know, I can log into my bank account and see everything I've got from everywhere. So evolutions like that, I think, are adopting technology, because again, you have generations coming through organizations, right? Because you're always hiring, you know, new staff into your business, and they come with different insight and experiences. And I think you find even they've had to evolve to keep up with what's happening. Your mainstream sort of, let's call them bricks and mortar banks, right, scenarios, they've had to evolve because there's massive play in fintech recently where you've got, I'm not going to start naming names because, you know, but there's been a whole load of players come into this market, right, into the banking world that have, I don't know, what's the phrase, a cat amongst the pigeons, that kind of scenario. If they can, why can't we evolve ever so slightly, right? It doesn't need to be a huge amount, like, but they have, and I think they've taken notice, right? And maybe, obviously, I'm on the outside. I don't work at a bank, but I think that has happened, right? And that's evolved. Now, what is going to be the future? Now, that is a night. I mean, I'm my personal view, right? I mean, and this is entirely just me explaining me, I guess. I find augmented reality, right, fascinating, right? The whole concept, it's such a simple principle of being able to, let's say, hold up your camera, right, and go, right, okay, fine, let me see what's down that high street. You know, I wished a long time ago that when I'm looking for like directions, it would show me a picture of the junction, not the road name or not in written, because it doesn't correlate. But that augmented reality piece, right? That for me is fascinating. Will that happen where you can stand on the high street, hold your phone up, and go, "I'm looking for retailer A," and you can say, "Oh, fine, okay," versus typing it in. I know you can do these things, right? But you get lazy. You hold it up and go, "Right, okay, find me." Does that work, right? Well, that saying actually there's an offer on your way, right? Because you're passing with a node or something that's giving you some geolocation access and says, actually, you know what? Here's something here. That adoption is interesting because that will require, additional tech being allowed into a very controlled banking environment, and that's where I think it will come down to a lot of security. Because if you think about the information, and if you look at even, I'm not talking about fines this late on in the conversation, but imagine the GDPR breaches and the fines involved.
Yeah,
a bank gets stung with one of those. I mean, that would crumble a nation. Literally, I mean, they can't afford to have those scenarios, right? So I think that's going to be interesting to see what could happen, right?
Yeah.
I don't get me wrong. I heard something the other day. People you can put under your skin. Have your little chip reader under your skin, so you don't even need one. I'm like, it's a step far, right? But is it? Does that matter? I mean, we've probably done it. You've already heard this. Going through London with an Oyster card, prepaid card, and sewing it into the seam of your jacket because you can just tap it on in the winter. And you don't have to worry about fumbling for it. How far different is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and you mentioned earlier about kind of the rise of fintech and stuff. I think that's quite an interesting point because, I agree. I think there's quite an interesting tussle obviously between the traditional banking and the fintech world where, fintech's obviously trying to get people to shift their money to these new disruptive banks. And so as a consequence, increasing loyalty and engaging with customers is more important for banks and fintech players more than ever now.
Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of a lot of the innovation is on them to figure out how they're gonna engage with these customers, going into the future. And I suppose for you guys, it's about more about making sure that there's more rich data available so that they can build upon those things. Yeah. Also, just like giving birth to new types of partner models. We're seeing different models pop up all the time that are underpinned by card linking. Just to name one example, Google Pay are going to start leveraging that technology to surface rewards to people with an Android device that use the wallet. This is a new partner type that has come out of nowhere really, and obviously represents a huge opportunity for brands.
Yeah.
It's
tech everywhere. It's amazing.
But my last question is around a big talking part in our industry is all about kind of how we're moving to a cookieless future, and there's constant updates from Safari, Apple, and things like IDFA.
Yeah.
What kind of role does that have to play in your world?
Interesting. There's two ways I could answer that one, so I'm going to give both actually. Just I think that they're valid. One is it's amazing, right? Because it doesn't affect us, right? In a direct sense, we don't need that, right? Our world is about the transaction data. It's about the actual purchase and the actual purchases throughout sectors. So in that sense, it doesn't impact us because we're not relying on it. We don't need to adhere to it. We don't use any of those sort of search-based algorithms or any of these to be able to drive what we do. Ours is all based in that banking ecosystem, which isn't directly affected by purchase inside. It's that card linking part of that. Now, that has that direct little impact on us, right? And in that respect, then the other side of it is it could be hugely, and I think it is hugely beneficial because could this be another reason why we've had an influx of e-commerce brands coming through, because actually a data source they may have relied on previously has now changed because of an update or a change in legislation. These sort of things happening, you go, well, actually, that doesn't impact us. It could be driving brands to us because the reliability, the cleanliness, and reliability and cleanliness of the data we have. It doesn't need a third one. It's so robust and it's matter of fact. It's not a question of, did it happen? Did somebody do that? Oh, no. But those consumers, they shopped at that physical store. And and last week they were online with that store as well. So, look at that. What a brand correlation. We know those things. So we're very lucky because we don't rely on those ecosystem. Our ecosystem is quite unique.
You are in the cookieless future already. Yeah.
We're there, right? Who would have thought that would have been that person? You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just adds to the reason, the simplicity, the robustness. I think it's an incredibly exciting channel, Steve. I think we're just about out of time, so thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today, and I hope the audience enjoyed that, and stay tuned for great sessions coming up next.
Thanks a lot.